Welcome to NCIX Tech Tips. We've got a really cool system here for you today. This is the SLIngshot. SLIngshot. Or Slingshot, whichever you prefer. As always, we'll start with the outside. We've got a Corsair Obsidian 350D. This is Corsair's first micro ATX chassis, and it's all about fitting a phenomenal amount of hardware into a very small enclosure. So at the front of the case, we find headphone microphone jacks, a reset switch, a power switch, and two USB 3 super speed ports, two 5¼ inch bays, as well as a large aluminum plate. It's got a nice brushed finish on the front of the case that we've come to expect from their Obsidian chassis. And then finally, a removable fan filter right there that gives you access to that single 140mm fan that's on the front. You can actually change that out for two 120s if you prefer. Moving away from the front panel, on the right-hand side, we've got a whole lot of nothing, just plain and clean looking. And on the left-hand side, oh, it's anything but plain. We've got a nice big window so you can see all the juicy internals that you're probably going to put in a case of this magnitude, although magnitude would imply that it's actually big. No, it's more about fitting big things into a small package. Up here on the top, we've got more ventilation, so you can have two 120mm or two 140mm fans, and you can see it easily fits a 240mm radiator because we've got an H100i mounted in here out of the box that comes with this system. So on the back of the board, check this out, we've got, supplied by ASUS's ROG MATX board, 4 USB 2.0 ports, 6 USB 3.0 ports, HDMI, optical audio out, gigabit Ethernet, 7.1 audio, clear CMOS, ROG Connect, and check out those display outputs. Looks pretty G, am I right? Well, considering that the system costs a couple of G's, I guess you better be getting a couple graphics cards with it, and those right there, so 4 DVI out total, 2 HDMI, and 2 DisplayPort are provided by dual GTX 760s. Now it's time to open up this little beast machine and have a look at what we find inside. So you can see that window is quite solidly attached to the case. No mounting hardware around the outside of it. This is cool. It's a neat approach that Corsair's done, where they fold over a piece of the side panel metal to mount the window to it. Then once we're inside, we see, yes, custom red LED lighting courtesy of BitPhoenix Alchemy strips. Next up, we've got the Maximus 6 Gene motherboard. I did mention ROG, and that is about as ROG as it gets. So this is ASUS's Z87 Republic of Gamers board with full support for SLI Crossfire and all that. No, SLI support, right, of course. We've got two GeForce GTX 760 Superclocks from EVGA. So you've got your little ROG SLI bridge there and a very, very clean looking card setup, partly due to the fact that the power supply, this is an HX750 80+ gold power supply, has very nice sleeving on top of the black wires, making it go incredibly well with these black and gray graphics cards. For memory, we've gone with Corsair Vengeance Pro 16 gigs, so these are 2x8 gig DIMMs, and what you're able to do is actually load this system up with 32 gigs of memory due to the way that it's configured without any real changes. Remember, Vengeance Pro is designed to give a little bit more overclocking headroom compared to regular memory from Corsair or even other manufacturers. We've got a Corsair H100i that's cooling the 4770K, so this is the flagship Haswell CPU 4th generation core processor from Intel. And last but not least, definitely not least, dual Corsair Neutron GTX SSDs. So that's dual 120 gig SSDs in RAID 0 for an even bigger performance boost versus running them standalone. So okay, it's $2,000, but what do you get for your money? Number one is you get great performance. So it's a 4770K on a very overclocking ready platform with overclocking ready cooling. You're ready to overclock this system. There's an overclocking guide on this channel. Check it out. Once you get one of these, you'll know how to turn up the speed. Number two is graphics. Dual GTX 760s actually trades blows with a GTX Titan in terms of raw performance. The one drawback versus a Titan is, remember guys, 760s each have 2 gigs of memory, and in SLI, that benefit doesn't stack. So you have effectively 2 gigs of RAM, whereas with a Titan, you'd get 6 gigs. However, a Titan costs $1,000. So in terms of performance to price ratio, this system is starting to look pretty good. Then when you factor in performance to price to size, it starts to look even better. And when you go for performance to price to size to value, then things get even more impressive. It actually comes with a copy of Metro Last Light, another copy of Metro Last Light, a copy of Borderlands 2, a copy of Grid 2, as well as a Grid 2 t-shirt that comes with your Haswell 4770K processor. Thank you for checking out this episode of NCIX Tech Tips on the very funny Russian, that's I'm sure that's his doing, SLIngshot, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX.com.